Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you and welcome to Islam and Life with me Tariq Ramadan, broadcasting from London. In today's show we ask the question, who exactly are the Takfiris and where have they come from?
Some terrorism executed by states, others by individuals referring to themselves as Muslims. More recently, the world has seen them in Syria. Countless videos online of these individuals cutting people's heads, stabbing corpses, and eating their hearts. They have even vandalized the graves of the Prophet Muhammad's close companions, not to mention that of his own granddaughter. The Islamic world has denounced them as Takfiris, people who wrongfully declare Muslims to be non-believers. Takfiris are not comprised within the main schools of thought within Islam. So who are they? And which ideology guides them or influences them? In today's Islam and Life, we ask, who exactly are the Takfiris and where have they come from?
This is an important question. If you look at the situation in the Muslim majority countries, we can find now that there is a trend that we can call Takfiris, and we have to ask ourselves, is this the right terminology? Is this the right concept, the right term to define these people, and where do they come from in the Islamic history within the different Muslim societies? For example, there is a history where we can find the same mindset, the same religious attitude and political attitude, which is important to study. And then if we come to the situation that we have now in the Middle East, for example, we can see that they are operating at the grassroots level, that there are connections between different trends in different countries, and to understand in which way they are working from within, knowing and repeating that these are not majority trends, they are not representing Muslims, they are within the Muslim societies and within the Muslim communities, very often minorities active, vocal, and sometimes effective when it comes to politics and when it comes to internal divisions. So we need to tackle all these questions to try to have a sense of history, to try to have a sense of what is happening now, the political challenges and the religious questions that are connected to these trends. And to answer all these questions, I'm joined by my guest, Islamic scholar Syed Muhammad Radavi. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I think we are tackling here an essential question, because if we look at one of the main challenges, if I look myself, writing and about what is happening in the Muslim majority countries, one of the main challenges is divisions between Muslims, between the traditions, within the traditions. And we have a trend here which is very, very active and pushing and nurturing these divisions. Before coming to what is happening now, let us come to a better understanding of what we call Takfiris. What would be your definition? And then second question, how do you relate them to other trends within history?
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is no doubt that this Takfiri movement is creating division between Muslim Ummah, and is a source of problem and trouble in the Muslim world at the moment. As you mentioned, that we will discuss this later on. But as far as the Takfiri itself is concerned, initially it started at very early stages of Islam, when the Khawarij, at the time of Khawarij, but then faded away, and Muslims were sort of coexisting with each other quite normally, and although there were ups and downs and problems, but not at the extent of declaring someone as kafir. And when they declare someone as kafir, this is how the Takfiri comes. Yes. That means everything is allowed, everything of their property, their women, their honor, respect, dignity is permissible for them. So they declare other people as kafir, and then they raid them, they attack them, they
But let us come to the
them.
definition.
Yeah.
It's takfiri means what exactly? And when you say they are doing such and such, you are referring to al-Khawarij, and this is a very well-known trend at the beginning of Islam. But what does it mean exactly? What do they do with their fellow Muslims, and how do they operate on religious issues to produce that?
Well, they initially believe that anything beside God is shirk. If we associate anyone beside God is shirk, which all Muslims believe, but they present a very rigid explanation for that. For example, we have verses of Holy Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that mu'min, a believer, can intercede for a believer. I can pray for you, you can pray for me. So if Quran says we can pray for each other, so how can it not be possible for a great personality like Prophet Muhammad and all other prophets to pray for or intercede for each other? Because that's the Quranic verse. But they interpret it differently, and they declare whoever is seeking the intercession of anyone else is kafir. And therefore they declare them as everything of there is halal. Kafir, let me give the translation of kufr or kafir. Kufr means rejecting. For example, if I am given a cup of water and I refuse to take it, I have done my rejection for taking the cup of water. So if I if I don't accept a part of Islamic belief, so I become kafir regarding in relation to that part of belief.
Yes, there are many levels of kufr. In fact,
there are many levels of
kufr. Al-kufr al-azhar, the biggest one, and to the small one.
The kufr that is defined in Holy Quran, it's a very grave matter. I mean, if somebody does not accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as God, supreme creator, or if someone rejects the essential beliefs of Islam, that also, for example, if a Muslim says I don't believe in prayers, he has partially become kafir because he is rejecting the essential part of Islam. Or if somebody says I don't believe in fasting, he has rejected part of Islam. Or if somebody even says I don't believe in polygamy, or I don't believe in that alcohol is haram, or any other issue. So they are partial rejectors.
Yes, but when I listen to you now, when the way you define kufr, and we were defining before takfiris, what differentiate what you are saying about kufr from what they are saying?
They give a rigid meaning, very rigid meaning. They take it, for example, recently I watched a clip, apparently some drivers in Syria were taking the truckloads from one area to another area, and they were stopped and they were asked to recite the Shahada. And obviously the grassroots level people are not that educated, so they gave confusing answers, like how many rak'ah of prayers do we have to pray, and they declared them as kafir and shot them and killed them. This is not what Islam says. Islam teaches us to be kind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Prophet Muhammad, if you were not lenient and kind to people, people would have not gathered around you. So the reason of success of Prophet Muhammad was leniency and kindness, not declaring everyone as kafir and killing them. And if Prophet had done that, Muslims would not be there.
So if we try to get the sense of what we are saying now, it's as old as the Islamic history. You always had trends that were quite rigid and narrow minded, in fact, in defining who is within and who is outside. And we spoke about al-Khawarij, and there were other trends. So now what you are saying is that sometimes they are what they are saying is based on the right things and right principles, but the way they understand it and the way they implement it is very extremist. So this is, and putting people outside. If now I were to ask you, who has the right? Is there someone who has the right to put someone or somebody within Islam or outside Islam? What would you say from a religious viewpoint?
Well, I mean, what we need to do is the way at the beginning of Islam, Khawarij were confronted. So the Muslim Ummah need to be united and these are very small group, a very minority. Even in amongst the Wahhabi or Salafis, there is a small minority who is Takfiri. So
that's a very important point. What you are saying is that not all the Salafi
not all the Salafis or not all the Wahhabis have the same point of view. They believe, I may have many Salafi and Wahhabi friends, they believe in coexisting. They believe that we need to live. I mean, this was the case until a few years ago. And actually the recent Takfiri development is the product of American and Mossad backing, because they wanted to divide and rule between Muslim Ummah.
So that's exactly the point that I wanted to tackle. It's what you said, and this is very important in the discussion, is that it's a religious view, that it's an extremist view, but we can find at the grassroots level, we can find within communities people who are very sincere. They think that this is right because they are taught so, because they think. So it's not only political. Now you are opening another discussion, which is now, if we look at the situation, this is not only religious. There is a political agenda to push the Takfiris. So how would you describe this political agenda?
The political agenda, it was strengthened after the what do you call expelling of Russians from Afghanistan. Americans needed them. They supported these Takfiris, and they did not realize that these were extremists, or maybe they did it deliberately. We don't, God knows better.
But just to be clear about Afghanistan, not all the Taliban are Takfiris. They were supported by Americans and Saudis at the beginning in the 90s, in mid-90s, but they are not all Takfiris. So we are now saying they supported the Taliban, but at the same time they supported minority groups that were Takfiris.
Basically, the group which were confronting, because the Takfiri idea was to expel the Christians from the Muslim countries, and unless they signed the contract of being Ahl Zimma. So this is how it all started. Later on, they declared Shia Muslims as the group which have to be killed or expelled. Expelled or killed. So then Christians and Shia Muslims were included in that group. So from this group, there were some of them who were studying in Saudi Arabia, and then they went to Afghanistan. They were from Afghanistan, and Russia had occupied Afghanistan, and American interest was to remove Russia from there. So they supplied the ammunition and strengthened the Takfiri. Basically, they strengthened the Wahhabi movement there. The students studied, educated in Saudi Arabia, and they were in Afghanistan. Then from them, the Takfiri movement took over the power, and this is what's happening throughout the Arab Muslim world, in Egypt, in Libya, in Syria, in other places.
What is happening? What do you mean?
They are hijacking. The Takfiris are hijacking the revolutions or Muslim movement from the hands of others who are sincere to bring Islamic teachings in practice. They are not necessarily Takfiris, but the minority are Takfiri.
But for example, when you see what is happening in Tunisia, what is happening in Egypt, what is happening in the Middle East, you see that the Salafi are here. What you said is that not all the Salafi are Takfiris, but within the Salafi, the Takfiris are playing an instrumental role. This is what you mean. To do what exactly? What is the purpose?
They are playing in the hands of America and Israel. American and Israeli interest is to promote this kind of group. So the Muslims end up fighting with each other, and they could gain what they want out of the muddled water.
But someone would ask you straight away, do you have evidences? Can you at least on the political side of the spectrum, can you tell us or show us something that could show that there is a link or common interests between what they are doing on the ground and what are the foreign powers are gaining from this?
Well, I mean, Syria is the best example. All the Takfiris are being supported by America, by Qatar. So these are the Qatar and America are basically at the back, and Israel is maybe not declared, but
they are saying they are supporting the opposition, but not all the opposition are Takfiris. So once again, it's the same scenario as in Egypt, that you have a small group within.
Yeah, in Syria also everything is hijacked by the Takfiris because they have money and financial background. And they just overrule. I mean, even FSA leaders were killed by Takfiris.
But when, for example, it is said that Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, like monarchies and petromonarchies, are supporting the Salafi, your point on this is that by supporting the Salafi, they are also supporting Takfiris, and this is to divide the country.
Yeah.
This would be the way you put it?
Well, I would say that Takfiris are the main elements who are doing all this fitna around the Muslim world, and they usually end up hijacking by bullying and by force. What happened in Egypt is the same. Muslim Brotherhood was active for many years, and they were gearing up to establish a proper government which could support and allow all Egyptians to live together, Ahl Kitab and non-Ahl Kitab together without any problem. But the Takfiri movement was pushing, and they pushed up to the level that maybe it became the reason of toppling of the Morsi government, because after all, there is a large group of Egyptians who are afraid of them as well, because in Egypt there are quite a lot of Sunni Muslims who believe who are not very
not knowledgeable about
and they are not pro-Salafi or Wahhabi movement, so they even feel threatened.
So you are a Muslim scholar. You are dealing with this. Now, if we look at the situation is very worrying. Now, if we want to be more equipped to get a better sense of what is happening, and then understanding, the religious side, because it's very difficult to deal with people sometimes. I met some of them on the ground. I met some of them in societies, and you can see that, the followers are sincere. Some of them are very sincere. They really think that this is religion, so this is the truth. So kufr is kufr, iman is iman, and then they have a binary vision. It's all quite dogmatic. You say the extremists. So how do we deal with this on the religious side, and how we deal with the political side?
I think we need to increase awareness. We need to follow the verses of Holy Quran. There are verses of Holy Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites Christians and Jews to be together. Let's be united on what we have in common. So as Muslims of all 5 sects, Ja'fari, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, all 5 schools of thought have more in common than, and less in, they have less disagreement and more in common. So let's be united on what we have in common, like what our ancestors did during last 1,000 years, until Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ibn Taymiyyah and others came, because they gradually promoted this rigid type of explanation of Islamic teachings, and then which changed into political movement by the combination of Saudi government with Abdul Wahab. So it took up a political shape.
So the first field on which we have to work, if I listen to you carefully, knowing that this is coming also from our history, is intra-community dialogue between the trends. You spoke about the 5 madhahib.
We need to invite Ahl Kitab as well.
Ahl Kitab also.
They are part of our family as well.
Yes. Ahl al-Kitab meaning the Jews and the Christians.
Jews and Christians.
Yes, and in what is happening in Egypt, it's true that we had trends saying that as it is a Muslim majority countries, the Coptic citizens should have another status. So all this is coming back in a way which has to be tackled religiously.
Yeah. And they have been living there for thousands of years.
Exactly.
So in Egypt, as much as the Muslims have the right to live there, the Christians also have the right to live there. Jews also have the right to live there. They are Ahlul Kitab. So we need to learn how to live together and coexist.
So it's a great hope. Yet, if we look at what is happening now, we have the feeling that we are going on the other way.
Yeah.
The opposite way.
Yeah, all we need to do is identify these takfiris and eliminate them from our society.
So would you say, for example, to start with, there is a great responsibility on all the Sunni leaders and Shia leaders to come together and to make it clear that they have more in common than what we are struggling, and what we are struggling against could be these extremist views coming from within the Muslim community?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, about 6 years ago, I had a meeting with the Grand Mufti of Medina. And he was discussing with me, and he gave me at least a dozen of books, and he said he was Salafi and Wahhabi. He gave me a dozen of books in praise of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. And he was begging me to acknowledge that Salafis do love Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. So, I mean, this was one of the Grand Muftis of Medina.
So this is the way on the religious side. Now, if you have to tackle the political side, knowing that all this is instrumentalized, you said, by foreign powers, the United States of America, but also European countries, petromonarchies are playing with all this because it's dividing the Muslims. So what can we do in political terms?
Their interest is oil. Their interest is our resources, and we as Muslims have brain, we have resources, we have intellect, we have everything. If we get together, we can have the power in our hands. And having power in our hands does not mean that we as a Muslim should suppress or oppress anyone else. As Quran invites us to live together, Christian, Jews, Muslims should be living together as a family.
Thank you so much. I think that once again, if we look at what we said about history, this is something which is not new. You spoke about al-Khawarij that were known, and we had different trends. So we need to understand that it might be that they are relying on the right principles. The point is not the righteous principles, is to be extremist and sometimes to be very tough with them and rejecting and putting people outside Islam, which is a mindset, it's a way of reading the principles. So what is the answer here is, let us come together.
Yeah, we have more in common.
Exactly. And you said something which is important, not only Muslims, but also min Ahl al-Kitab, people of the book, the Christians and the Jews, which is important. The second side is to understand here that we are not only dealing with internal challenges that are powers, that are playing with our divisions, and it's also to be conscious, politically conscious and aware of what is at stake here, and this is important. Well, that's all we have time for. Please let us know your thoughts and views on any of the shows you have seen, and here is the way to contact us.
We at Islam in Life would like to hear your views about the subjects that we discuss. We would also love to hear your suggestions for our program, so get in touch with us. You can share your thoughts with other Islam in Life fans, engage in debate, and find out how to watch our previous shows. Follow us on Twitter at Islam and Life TV, or join us on Facebook by liking our page, Islam and Life on Press TV.
Finally, I would like to thank my guest, Sayyid Muhammad Radavi. Thank you so much for being with us and your wisdom with these thoughts, and I hope to see you next week, inshallah.